Blog Talk Radio.
Lincoln 103, 5 Lincoln 102, Lincoln 103 and 102.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
Henry 8, Henry 9. Respond to gate 437 Bravo for your dignitary detail. 3K 911 unattended 400 lower level near carousel 4 black bag. GTA in progress 401 parking structure, section 4 boy.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
415 passenger onboard aircraft.
Control 2 Franklin and route.
484 suspect, female, Hispanic, 28 years of age, blue jeans, no further.
Control 5 Frank 401 is en route.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Loss Prevention Zone, the LP Zone, where everything is always about loss prevention, retail security, mall security, everything that involves asset protection for retailers across the nation and around the world. I'm your host, Rick McCann. This is our 401 episode of our program, and we're very happy to be with you on this, the first day of February 2017, and we've got a lot to talk about. Today's subject, we're going to be talking about body language and reading a suspect and understanding when that person may be a serious threat. Before we get into that, I do want to remind you that we have a brand new magazine coming out, the Private Officer Beat. Be sure to check that out, along with uniform security and public safety topics and news and information. We're, of course, going to have loss prevention, retail, asset protection, very important part of what we do. And, you know, it's really important that we have these professional products out there for people on the front line, and that's why we do it. Be sure to sign up, of course, for our daily and weekly newsletters and breaking news. If you haven't already, just go to privateofficer.com. You can sign up right there at the top of the page. You're going to get all sorts of breaking news regarding loss prevention and retail security, as well as private security in general. And of course, you'll be right there on top, right on the front line of everything that's happening, because we do have our own full-time news department, which is a great asset. You're going to be informed, and that information can be vital. Recently, as a matter of fact, we had notified our members and newsletter subscribers about a rooftop burglar breaking into Kohl's and Target and a few stores in the southeast. We were able to generate some information that was given to us by law enforcement, and the store down in Mississippi had a dealing with a possible suspect, and it turned out that within a matter of a week or so, the suspect was caught. Information is king. It's very important that you stay informed, so please sign up for those newsletters right there at privateofficer.com at the top of the page. Before we go into our topic, I do want to also kind of include some quick information about 2016 in review. It was a very unfortunate year for the security industry, both uniform and loss prevention, asset protection, as about 100 security officers were killed. We had about 60,000 that were assaulted, and thousands of security personnel, including loss prevention, injured. Every year, about 3 or 4 security officers are killed while trying to stop a shoplifting or a robbery at a store. These are things that happen all the time, as you know, being in the industry. They just don't get publicized. They're not in the media headlines, and it's really difficult to know really what is happening across the country. And that's why we have a news department where we gather this information, we gather the intel, the data, the statistics, and we make those available to our members. And it's very important that you keep heads up on what's happening. But 2016 was violent for private security, especially loss prevention. In the last 8 years, we've tracked loss prevention injuries increases, and each year they continue to rise. And I've mentioned this before on my programs, and certainly in my training that I do across the country. Back when I was in loss prevention, and I spent almost 10 years in LP, various retailers and positions, it was just an occasional thing that you really got into a physical altercation or had a gun pulled on you. Now it's a daily event. We see it every single day. LP agents in the fight for their life, assaulted, non-compliant, resistant shoplifters. Many are, gang members, people who don't want to go back to jail or prison, repeat offenders, and organized retail criminals who are going to fight to the end to escape. So, yes, retail security, loss prevention definitely has increased. I would say 5-10 folds, really, in the last 8, 9, 10 years. But definitely in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a lot more guns come into play, a lot more firearms, and people that aren't even involved in the actual theft, but co-conspirators coming out of vehicles, coming out of woodwork, and pulling firearms on security agents so that their friends or relatives or whoever they might be can escape. So it's definitely a dangerous scenario. Most LP agents, as you know, are unarmed. A few have handcuffs, but like I told a LP asset manager last week in conversation, you can't stop a bullet with a pair of handcuffs. You just can't do it. I believe that all LP agents should be armed. You should have pepper spray, taser, even maybe firearms. One of the things I mentioned last week in an interview and an article that I wrote was that every time, well, let's think of it this way. Last year, according to the Jack Hayes International Company, which collects statistical data for the loss prevention industry, last year, about 1.4 million shoplifters were apprehended. Those were the ones apprehended, not the ones that occurred or got away. Those were catches. And we can all agree that 1.4 million shoplifting is a crime. It's a crime in progress. And it's the LP agent, the loss prevention agent, asset protection agent, who's going after these criminals. It's a crime in progress. 1.4 million times loss prevention agents last year nabbed a shoplifter. And they did a great job. They were able to get them into custody without too many injuries and without, having to fight to the death. But 1.4 million times there was a crime in progress, and unarmed asset protection, loss prevention, and retail security officers intervened. And they were the ones on the front line, not law enforcement, who made those apprehensions. So yeah, it's not really too far-fetched to think that even LP agents should be armed if they're going to be responsible for not only nabbing shoplifters, but now loss prevention agents and retail security are called to domestic violence incidents, sex assaults, kidnappings, all sorts of calls happening within those four walls of the big box store or shopping mall or shopping center. Not so far-fetched after all. You're listening to the LP Zone Loss Prevention where it's all about asset protection. I'm your host, Rick McCann. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, today we want to talk about body language and reading a suspect's, not only their body language, but their eyes, their hands, understanding when they do pose a threat, understanding what those indicators may mean, what the twitch means, what the shifting of the eyes, the blading of the body. All very important when you're unarmed or armed and you are stopping a suspected criminal. So we'll be right back with today's topic, and we'll be talking a little bit more about what's coming up here at Private Officer International that involves you and all private security, private police, loss prevention, asset protective agents, and public safety. We'll be right back after this short and very brief public safety announcement.
It's for my wife.
My husband still doesn't know the real story about that dent in the van.
I've never told her that I used to be a lifeguard at a nude beach.
I've never told my kids about the time I was arrested for streaking.
My friends don't know that I still sleep with my teddy bear.
But they all do know one thing about me.
And that I'm an organ donor.
That I'm an organ donor.
I'm an organ donor.
I'm an organ donor.
And that's one thing that's too important to keep a secret. Because I could save somebody's life. How cool is that?
It's a very simple thing. It only takes 2 seconds. We all know we should do it. We all say we do it. But do we? About 35,000 people were killed in motor vehicle accidents last year. More than half were not wearing a seatbelt. A brother, a father, a mother, a best friend. Is it worth it? I lost a sister. Don't let it happen to you and your family. Tell the people you love to buckle up.
You're listening to the Loss Prevention Zone, the LP Zone, where it's all about loss prevention, asset protection, retail security, hosted by myself, Rick McCann. And this is part of the Private Officer Network, sponsored by Private Officer International and our friends at Body Armor USA. You know, even though you may be unarmed, it's not really crazy to think that you may need body armor. So check out BodyArmorUSA.com. Our friends over there, tell them that POI sent you. You'll get a discount. Today we're talking about body language and reading a suspect, trying to decide whether or not they're a threat, trying to decide what their next moves are. And there's a number of things that you can look at and decipher to be able to understand what the threat is. Of course, one of the things that you're also trying to do when you're interviewing them, whether it be on the stop or back at the office, you want to check to see if they're deceptive. And sometimes it's easy to find out if they're truthful and easy to find out if they're being deceptive, and sometimes it's not. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Whenever we're talking about behavior, we're talking really about how people are acting, what they're saying verbally, what they're saying non-verbally, how they either make eye contact, how they're answering your questions. There's a lot of different things that we can take into consideration when we're assessing the person, when we're assessing their threat. When reading a person, we want to look at their body language. We want to look at their eyes. Are their pupils dilated? The human fight or flight reaction is really something that few people can control. No matter how good you are at controlling your mind, you're just not good enough, because the brain signals the body to dump adrenaline into the bloodstream, and that raises the heart rate and dilates the pupils. It makes them larger. As the pupils dilate, the peripheral vision narrows, which means they really don't have that great of vision to the side of their eyes. It's just a mechanism designed to have us face that threat directly, head on. And people that are about to act out, to be aggressive or perform a violent act, will usually have pupils dilated the size of pie plates. They're going to be directly focused on you. This is really one of the ways that we can tell, through their physiological responses, that they are definitely a problem, that they could be a problem. We're also looking at whether or not they're sweating profusely. That really shows that they have an increased heart rate. And again, this is involuntarily done. It's not something that they have any real control over. They can't decide to perspire or not. Not even professionals can adequately control their physical body and how it responds to various situations that it's in. People will have an aggressive heart rate. It'll be sky high. Again, you can tell, because a lot of times it'll show in the vein in their neck. It'll be pounding, a pounding pulse, visible in the neck and in the temples. Again, this is really something that's difficult for most people, if not even impossible for most people, to control. These are all signs that they are possibly a threat to you. When we're looking, when we're questioning, when we're apprehending, when we've got somebody in custody, until they're locked down, until they're secured, until they're restrained completely, and even then it's not 100%, they're a threat. And sometimes we can easily let our guard down, especially in the LP world, because the person, you stop that person at the door, you stop them on the sidewalk, you say, "Sir, would you come back with us? You have some items you didn't pay for." They go, okay, yeah, sure. And because they begin walking with you voluntarily, we begin thinking, okay, well, they're no threat. They're going to cooperate. And suddenly, they pound on you like a lion in the backwoods of Africa would pound on their next meal. It's very important that not only do we always stay on guard, but that we always watch that person's body language. The second thing that we can watch for is the upper torso, which will reveal two very important clues. You have to be keen enough to observe them, but they are going to be there. The first one is the shoulders. Are the shoulders hanging naturally in a relaxed pose, or are they tight and raised? If a person is about to strike or move aggressively, they're often going to telegraph that. They're going to telegraph really in advance their intention by the way that they carry their shoulders. And the second clue, again, it is there, although you may really have to have a keen observation. The second clue is the upper chest, where it pertains to respiration. Now, normally men are stomach breathers, while women are chest breathers. But when the action is amped up, when the adrenaline is pumping, both sexes, men and women, tend to breathe in a shallow manner from their chest. So look for the rapid rise and fall of the chest as evidence of breathing hard. People's physical being changes when they begin to ramp up, when the blood's pumping and the adrenaline is flowing. We also want to watch the hands and arms. As one police officer said, the feet never kill anyone. Well, I mean, they can hurt you, but they don't kill you. The reference really was to the fact that overwhelmingly the hands are where the movement is going to be. Hovering around the waistband presents a threat. If that hand is continually being toward the midsection, that means at any moment that suspect, that person could produce a gun. He could take a firearm from the waistband, under his shirt, jacket, very quickly. As long as those hands are any place near the midsection, it's a threat. It's also easy for a person who has their hands in that position to quickly ball up their fist and quickly attack before you could possibly get into a fighting position. A lot quicker for them to do that than if their hands was crossed, their arms were crossed, their hands were in their pockets, or, in a relaxed state. Hands and arms, you gotta watch them. Another area are the feet and the legs. Primarily what we're looking there, we're looking for the stance. Are they bladed toward you? Bladed being sideways. That refers to really a combat style stance where the dominant foot is always behind the non-dominant foot and about shoulder width apart. Blading can also serve as a dual clue because most people carry a firearm and they'll blade themselves away from the threat. It also can conceal the firearm. So if I'm left-handed and I blade myself with my left body behind me, it's harder to see if I do have a weapon. We have to protect ourselves. And when we see these obvious changes in stance, in positioning, in blood pressure, it really tells us that something is about to happen. Really, we're looking for the whole package. We're looking for the movement, the warning signs, nervous twitches that will signal that a person is about to act, probably aggressively or threatening. Two common signs of impending action are pacing and standing on the balls of their feet. When people begin to stand on the ball of their feet, what they're doing, like a boxer, is they're getting ready to pounce. Many attacks begin when a person pacing back and forth suddenly launches an attack about midpoint. And many flights or escapes begin when a person gets up on the ball of their heel, of their feet, and just like a runner, if they don't strike at you, they flee. It's important that you recognize all of these signals, that you understand what they mean, and be able to respond quickly and accurately, appropriately to defend yourself. These are just some of the telltale signs of body language. There's a lot more. And as I always tell my security and law enforcement professionals, I don't care how many years you've been in the business and how long you've been doing this and how many bad guys you've brought down. We can all use a refresher, a reminder. We all let our guard down. But it's important to understand the signs, to be able to read the body language and understand what's about to happen, whether that be fight or flight. This is something that you need to know. I always tell my officers to train like it's going to happen in the next moment. Be prepared now Don't think it will never happen. Don't say I've never had a problem. All of the people we catch go back cooperatively. You know, they are compliant. Yeah, right. You must be dealing with 6-year-olds, because most people are not compliant and don't cooperate. You got, these days, maybe 50-50 if you're lucky. Know the signs. Know how to read body language. Take more training. Research on your own. And be prepared to be able to respond to their physical responses, because it's something they can't control, no matter how good they are at controlling their body. That's going to conclude this edition of the Loss Prevention Zone, the LP Zone, where it's always about loss prevention and asset protection. This has been sponsored by Private Officer International, privateofficer.com. Check them out today, and be sure to sign up for our free newsletters and magazines. That's all for today. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you back here on the radio